Welcome to CNBC Special. My name is Gulmina Sethi. Today I'm talking to Mr. Declan Byrne, who's the president of the Wimax Forum. The Wimax Forum is the global body for the approving standards of Wimax. I'm not quite sure what that means yet, but we're going to ask Declan. Declan is in Pakistan, also for the South Asia Conference. We're going to find out a little bit more about that as well. Thank you for talking to us today, Declan.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
So first of all, like I said, the obvious question, what is Wimax?
Well, sure. Wimax is a broadband internet technology.
Okay.
It's a radio technology. Many of your viewers would be familiar, of course, with cellular technologies, mobile phones, etc. Broadband, Wimax delivers broadband speeds over a wireless link to consumers, to businesses, to industry. So it's experienced broad take-up in Pakistan, surely, that's why we're here, but also across the world.
Okay, I'm sorry to sound like a complete layman, but if I understand correctly, Wimax technology takes broadband-level internet and it delivers it to the consumers without the actual wires.
Exactly right.
It's wireless technology, but it's as good as broadband.
As good, if not better.
If not better.
Yeah,
Right.
It's actually portable.
Okay.
It's mobile. It can be.
Right.
And the speeds that are delivered, depending on the network that's built, will exceed DSL in many instances.
Right. Okay. So you head the Wimax Forum, which is the global body that sort of sets the standards and
That's right.
all of that for Wimax technology. I understand basically what your function is, but could you give us a little
Sure,
bit
my
about
pleasure.
that as well?
So the Wimax Forum is an industry trade group. We have about 175 member companies. They are both service providers, as well as equipment supply and manufacturing companies, as well as government and academia, etc. We are an international association. We're headquartered in San Diego, California. We're a small organization, about 20 staff worldwide. We try to position our staff both in the U.S. as well as abroad where markets exist. So in Taipei, in Moscow, in New Delhi, and other places we have representatives. I head that organization. My mandate is really to evangelize for the technology, to speak for operators, to intercede where that makes sense with the regulators so that suitable radio frequency spectrum is allocated, and to really bring together the operators and the suppliers to talk about best practices so they can all learn from each other. And
so how is that going then? I mean, you've been speaking out for the technology. You have people all across the world. How is that going? It seems to be catching on globally. This is something you're very excited about.
Well, we're very, very excited, and we're very committed to it. It's going well. I mean, times change, clearly. In terms of the Wimax subscriber base worldwide, which is a useful metric in terms of measuring our own success, I'll tell you, we ended 2010 with about 13 or 14 million users of the technology. We ended 2011 with 25 million.
So you nearly doubled.
We nearly, exactly right. And we're probably at about 30 million users right now. Those are predominantly coming from North America, the United States, Mexico, Canada, but also Korea, Malaysia, Japan, a lot of developing markets. But I think the important thing, and the reason I'm in Pakistan, is I think our future growth will really come from emerging markets, where there's not a good wireline copper infrastructure to deliver broadband, which people manifestly want, whether it's a consumer or a business. And so we're seeing really innovative operators in Pakistan and other places deploy Wimax quickly as a radio technology to meet a real demand for broadband in the market.
Okay, so I think I'm speaking for the consumer today because as somebody that doesn't really know a lot about it, my questions might seem to you a bit basic.
It's okay.
But,
I'm not an engineer, so I'm good with basic questions.
So what I want to know also is, I think the perception here in Pakistan is that maybe wireless technology is more expensive. Now, I don't know to what extent that might be true, but what do consumers in Pakistan have to look forward to or to be excited about in terms of Wimax technology?
Sure. Well, let me begin by saying that there are about 500,000 Wimax broadband users in Pakistan. Already. So almost 1 in 3, I think it's 29% of all broadband users in Pakistan are using Wimax. They may not even know it's Wimax, but they're using Wimax. And that's good, actually. Consumers don't really care what technology they're using to, or what it's called. They won't even know. What a consumer wants is a stable broadband experience at the right price. And what my industry has done, we're 10 years old now. And what we've tried to do is through several iterations and and design improvements in the network and the devices continually drive down cost to a point where consumers, whether it's in a Pakistani context, a Bengali context, or a North American context, can get the right device, the right modem in their house to meet their needs, right, for consumer broadband access. And that's different things in different places. In North America, it's a smartphone. From HTC or Samsung or what have you, right? Which is all sorts of things, again, invisible to the consumer over a Wimax link. In Pakistan, generally, it's a fixed connection to a home or a small business. It would be a small, very modestly sized modem attached to a laptop or a desktop PC. And again, that modem then is wirelessly communicating to a base station a couple of miles away. It's helpful to think of Wimax as sort of Wi-Fi, but at very great distance, right? So it delivers a superior to Wi-Fi, but a broadband connection like users would know.
Right, of course.
But from an operator standpoint, there's a lot less infrastructure required than, say, Wi-Fi. So we think it's a nice match of both device cost and network cost.
Okay, so you're finding something in the middle that gives the consumers the best possible option.
And delivers, importantly, to operators a good return on their investment.
Right, obviously, because I mean, nobody's going to invest in these businesses unless they feel that they're going to get something out of it. So that brings me to another question. What should these operators in Pakistan that want to deploy Wimax technologies, what should they do to be more sort of profitable, and what should they do to try to get the most number of consumers?
There's a lot of innovation happening, and some of it in Pakistan, actually. I'm very excited. I'm very excited about the complementarity of Wi-Fi and Wimax. I'll tell you why. Wimax is proven as a very cost-effective means to deliver broadband to a consumer. I'm a consumer as well, so I appreciate. I want to spend my money in a way that's useful for my family, and when I work at home, and Wimax is a super way to get a multiple megabit connection into my home. But I also move around in my home. I move outside my home to my balcony. And Wi-Fi, as a connection, as a sort of an in-home connection to the Wi-Fi link, to the Wimax link rather, is a super way to give mobility within my broad home context. And the advantage about Wi-Fi is that it's in everything. Wi-Fi is the most successful radio technology to have ever existed.
And that it works on all sorts of devices.
It's in every smartphone. It's in every laptop. And so, whereas Wimax may not be, quite frankly. But Wimax provides, in lieu of copper or a wireline or a fiber, which is very expensive and time-consuming for an operator to deploy, Wimax provides that sort of critical, really quick last-mile connection. So I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. I'll give you an example. In Taiwan, one of our operators, Global Mobile, they have a Wimax network covering Taipei. And they've put this Wi-Fi service as an adjunct to the Wimax service, and they've added something like 300,000 or 400,000 users in the space of a year. And so it's very, very exciting, the ability as a force multiplier on the technology to meet the needs of a broadband-hungry populace, but to do it in a cost-effective way.
And so Pakistan, of course, is a broadband-hungry populace.
Absolutely.
Right here, sitting, waiting to be happened.
That's right.
How does this sort of tie in with the growth that we've seen I know this may be slightly off track, but in the telecommunications sector, because obviously Wimax technology is used on mobile phones. Do you think that's something exciting to look out for in Pakistan?
For sure. I mean, I was just at a lunch and we were talking about the fixed line infrastructure in Pakistan, which in many emerging economies is quite poor, and the number of fixed line connections has actually decreased over time. It was 5 million 10 years ago. It's something on the order of 3 or 4 million now. What we've seen in parallel is this explosive growth in GSM and mobile phone connections. I understand there's something on the order of 60 or 70 million mobile connections in Pakistan now.
That's what we hear.
And certainly, I think China has just passed 1 billion mobile phone connections. And this is all in about 10 or 15 years' time. It's phenomenal. So I think the next growth area, or even a concurrent growth area, is the demand for broadband. Mobile gives you the ability to taste the internet, to taste the world, and to begin to experience what your neighbors and your community, which is really a global community, is thinking about. But broadband really delivers that experience. There's a truism in the broadband business that, sort of demand will fill the pipe. if you will, right? And one thing we've seen, particularly among societies like in Pakistan, very young, highly educated, curious, innovative, right?
And want to know about the outside world.
And mobile. They want to know about themselves, their neighbors, their government, the outside world. And broadband delivers that experience. And Wimax is proving, again, in economies like Pakistan, to be a superlative solution to match that demand with an operator's ROI and desire to meet the demand.
Okay, we're talking to Mr. Declan Byrne. We're going to take a break right now, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the South Asia conference that's happening here in Pakistan and why that's important. Stay with us. We're talking to Mr. Declan Byrne, the president of the Wimax Forum. Like I said earlier, he's here in Pakistan for the South Asia Conference of 2012. Let's find out a little bit more about that. So, Declan, you're here for the South Asia Conference, as we mentioned. What is it? Tell us a little bit about it, and why is it so exciting?
Well, it's exciting because as we think about the growth of the technology for which I advocate, Wimax, it's really beginning to happen in emerging economies, more than developed economies, quite frankly. And the real exciting innovation that's occurring is in places like Pakistan. And it's high time we've come to Pakistan, quite frankly. There are 4 Wimax operators in Pakistan. They're all quite successful.
Right.
I think I mentioned to you that almost 1 in 3 broadband connections in this country are enabled over Wimax.
Right.
That's a success rate and a penetration rate for this technology that's nowhere else in the world.
And you guys are just getting here, so all
yeah,
right.
We've been here a few years, but
show.
the forum, my organization, has finally come, and that's made manifest by my presence and our desire to salute the operators in the region, bring the supply community to get together with them so they can talk about vendor-operator relationships, best practices between the operators.
Right.
We have over 150 registrants for our event, so we think it's a very successful international conference.
Right, they're from across South Asia.
They're across South Asia, so I have an office in New Delhi with a regional director who is really focused on Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan. We have an operator from Iraq, a new operator from Sulmania coming down because they understand that there's a lot of innovation and excitement and growth going on, and they're about to launch in 4 cities. And they really want to learn from their colleagues in the business, and this sort of event gives them a great opportunity to do so.
Okay, so wait, so when you were coming to Pakistan, and I mean this is a question that this is important because the security situation is obviously uncertain. There are a number of problems. Did that factor in at all before you decided to come into Pakistan, or is it just so exciting?
As an American, I'll have to tell you that it was with some pause that I considered hosting an event in Islamabad.
Right, certainly.
We watch the news and we read the papers, and I had a certain impression in my mind before coming to your beautiful country. I got here on Saturday evening. I felt completely secure.
All right, that's good to know.
The comments I've made to my Pakistani colleagues is I expected a much more sort of high security environment, and I have not seen that. I felt very at ease. I was wandering through Islamabad yesterday, much to my delight. I visited many local shops. I had a meal out. I had a suit made for myself.
Oh, lovely.
So I've been very, very happy. I felt very much at ease.
So you're enjoying your stay in
Pakistan? Very
much
so. This is not the last time I'll be in Pakistan, I assure you.
We're very glad to hear that. So, all right, so how does Pakistan compare in terms of, you were talking about the competitive sort of participants from across South Asia.
Sure.
You mentioned India and Bangladesh. How does Pakistan rank amongst its South Asian peers?
I think it's innovative. It's highly competitive.
All right.
What's interesting in Pakistan is that you have 4 Wimax operators competing voraciously to satisfy the demands of the consumer marketplace. Now that presents challenges, obviously. There's a limited amount of capital. The winners shall survive, clearly. But for now, that's healthy. It's good for the consumer, quite frankly.
It's great for the consumer.
It's delivering broadband at the lowest possible cost. So I would describe Pakistan as highly innovative, perhaps more competitive than other markets. But I'll tell you, even in Bangladesh, there are 2 very successful Wimax operators. In India, there is Wimax. Sri Lanka, Afghanistan. If you go to any of the Tajikistan, et cetera, in the area, there's quite a bit of Wimax. So in a sense, Pakistan is similar. But it's probably more competitive than other places.
Interesting, all right.
Which is good for the consumer again.
That's similar to what we saw in the telecommunications, the mobile phone industry.
I'm sure.
They're so very, very, very competitive. I mean, you'd see one service provider dropped their prices one day, and then the next day, like, they all had to do that.
And we understand why. I mean, you have 180 million potential purchasers in this country. Even on the mobile phone side, there's only 65% penetration.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of room yet for growth.
Certainly. What sort of support are you getting from the government? Are they being helpful to you?
Very, very welcoming.
Right.
I'm delighted to inform you that the chairman of the Pakistan Telecom Authority is opening our conference tomorrow. I'm looking very much forward to hearing what he has to say. He'll talk about sort of broadband policy, and I think he'll learn as well from his interactions here. So.
And okay, so I also want to know, what sort of things will you be talking about at the conference, which I believe begins tomorrow?
Yes.
And you know, there's going to be, as you mentioned, the chairman of the Pakistan Telecommunication Authority is going to be there.
Yes.
What sort of issues are going to be on the table?
Well, we begin after the chairman of PTA with an executive roundtable with the CEOs, a number of the Wimax operators. And one of the questions I'll be asking them, and I don't know the answer to this, 3G will come to Pakistan eventually, probably sometime in 2012. It'll begin. And that will, I think, that will present a challenge and an opportunity to Wimax operators. And I've seen this in other markets. Wimax operators that choose to fight 3G generally lose.
All right.
And they need to find a way forward because there is a complementarity. What Wimax is superlative at doing is delivering data. 3G is good at voice and what I call light data. So there's probably a way forward where they can cooperate. And I hope to stimulate that sort of dialogue and perhaps I might suggest you educate the community here about what's going on in other places that might be adopted. As well, I really want to challenge the operators in the region to cooperate. Can they cooperate in terms of roaming, in terms of aggregating their demand for common benefit? And so I think I can't tell you what's going to happen at the conference, but I think it'll be very interesting.
Right, okay. One of the last questions, we're getting towards the end of the interview, is what would you say, I mean, you're obviously going to be meeting with some of the operators tomorrow, and like you said, there's a lot of things that are going to come up. What is the single biggest challenge that you think they face in Pakistan today? Like, you know, the one thing that they need to make better on?
Well, I don't think it has anything to do with actually their business execution. I think the biggest challenge operators face is access to capital.
Right, and that's a problem.
A lot of this has to do with nothing to do with technology. It has to do with what's happened in the world since 2008, 2009, with security, as you mentioned, with confusion among the investor marketplace about the future of technology.
Absolutely.
About broadband technologies, about cellular technologies. And I think what delivers clarity to the investment marketplace is success.
Right.
And so when you see operators like Y-Tribe, like QB, like Wateen, which is helping endorse this conference, and we're delighted to have their support. When you see them have success and go from 0 to 300,000 subscribers in the space of 2 years, investors start to get it, and that you know, money follows success. So that's a challenge that is not unique to Pakistan, of course, but I hope that this conference begins to deliver that clarity to the investment marketplace.
Okay, so, right. Well, the last question, sir. Before I
thought that was the last question.
No, I have a couple more. Just a couple more questions. I want to know, before I ask you to give us a message for the operators or the consumers or investors to come to Pakistan, what I do want to know, I mean, technology progresses very, very fast. We see things that are, you know, the height of technology today, and they're obsolete the next day. Is that something that could happen with Wimax technology, or is this only something that's going to evolve and grow further? I mean, is this the way forward, or could we see something new coming up in the next couple of years? Well,
it is happening with Wimax technology, and as you say, all technologies. The pace of technical evolution
is astounding.
You can't even track it anymore. And that presents challenges, particularly to the supplier community, which is trying to sell, you know, they invest billions of dollars in research and development. They want some sort of return. By the time they're ready to sell what they have developed, the operator community wants the next thing. And so that certainly is a challenge. Again, it's wonderful for consumers.
It's great for consumers.
It's wonderful for consumers.
Absolutely.
But it presents challenges for operators and the supply community. I think how that is solved is delivering a steady, reliable experience, setting the expectation among the consumer correctly. In terms of, you know, what they can experience in their home and in the broader market, working closely with suppliers, and we hope this sort of event allows that sort of clear-headed thinking supplier to operator, which will translate to the consumer ultimately. And I think this show helps educate buyers of the product, if you will. And so we're hopeful that that's the outcome.
All right. So, well, you said you seem to have had a good time in Pakistan
so far.
We wish you the best up
Thank
ahead,
you.
and we hope your conference is very successful. Just as we leave, what message would you like to give to anybody that's interested in seeing Wimax grow in Pakistan? And what should they do? How to get in touch with you guys if they need help?
Sure.
You know.
Well, they're certainly able to get in touch with us. We are the wimaxforum.org. We're not for profit. Just Google it and you'll find us. That's right. There are 4 Wimax operators in Pakistan. It's an exciting marketplace. I guess the message I would deliver to your consumer or business audience is if you've been looking for a broadband connection to experience the world, to improve the metrics of your business, it exists in Pakistan. That's the news. Find a Wimax operator, whether it's one of the ones I mentioned.
Or something new that might come up.
That's right, exactly. Right. And don't be focused on the technology. Demand a good broadband connection because the operators are here to give it to you.
All right. So basically it's all about the consumers at the end of the day.
Absolutely. It always is.
Okay. Thank you so much for talking to us.
My pleasure.
Well, I hope we all know a little bit more about Wimax technology and how it works after this conversation of ours with Mr. Byrne. We hope their conference goes well. Look for it in the news, and if you really want to get in touch with these guys, it's wimaxforum.org. You can Google them. Thank you for watching. Welcome to CNBC Special. My name is Gulmina Sethi. Today I'm talking to Mr. Declan Byrne, who's the president of the Wimax Forum. The Wimax Forum is the global body for the approving standards of Wimax. I'm not quite sure what that means yet, but we're going to ask Declan. Declan is in Pakistan, also for the South Asia Conference. We're going to find out a little bit more about that as well. Thank you for talking to us today, Declan.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
So first of all, like I said, the obvious question, what is Wimax?
Well, sure. Wimax is a broadband internet technology.
Okay.
It's a radio technology. Many of your viewers would be familiar, of course, with cellular technologies, mobile phones, etc. Broadband, Wimax delivers broadband speeds over a wireless link to consumers, to businesses, to industry. So it's experienced broad take-up in Pakistan, surely, that's why we're here, but also across the world.
Okay, I'm sorry to sound like a complete layman, but if I understand correctly...
Moscow and New Delhi and other places we have representatives. I head that organization. My mandate is really to evangelize for the technology, to speak for operators, to intercede where that makes sense with the regulators so that suitable radio frequency spectrum is allocated, and to really bring together the operators and the suppliers to talk about best practices so they can all learn from each other. And
so how is that going then? I mean, you've been speaking out for the technology.
Sure.
You have people all across the world. How is that going? It seems to be catching on globally. This is something you're very excited about.
Well, we're very, very excited.
And basically what your function is. But could you give us a little
bit
my
about
pleasure. That as well?
So the Wimax Forum is an industry trade group. We have about 175 member companies. They are both service providers, as well as equipment supply and manufacturing companies, as well as government and academia, etc. We are an international association. We're headquartered in San Diego, California. We're a small organization, about 20 staff worldwide. We try to position our staff both in the U.S. as well as abroad where markets exist, so in Taipei, in Moscow.
Wimax technology takes broadband level internet and it delivers it to the consumers without the actual wires.
Exactly right.
It's wireless technology, but it's as good as broadband.
As good, if not better.
If not better.
Yeah. It's actually portable. It's mobile. It can be. And the speeds that are delivered, depending on the network that's built, will exceed DSL in many instances.
Right. Okay. So you head the Wimax Forum, which is the global body that sort of sets the standards and all of that for Wimax technology. I understand.